Alright, so the Rise of Skywalker is finally upon us, and people are rioting in the streets arguing about if the movie is really good or if the movie's really bad. Is it the best thing ever or is it the worst movie ever made? Well, I'm going to give you my honest opinion in this spoiler-free review. I'm going to talk about things like the story, the directing and editing, the acting, the graphics, of course, the music, and so on. So, let's dive into the review of the Rise of Skywalker. So let's start off with the story, which of course is the foundation of any good movie. And first and foremost, this movie is definitely the action Star Wars movie of the entire series, in my opinion. This is the definition of an action Star Wars film. I'll be honest with you, before this movie even came out, I said to everyone that I really wanted to see Episode 9, a pure action Star Wars film, where it's a lot of action, a lot of movement, and that's exactly what we got in this movie. And I personally did walk away from the movie very happy with the overall action sequences, with the graphics, the acting, the directing, and the editing. I really did enjoy it, and partly because I just love that type of movie, a fast-moving, action-packed movie. And, of course, we have to also discuss, was it a good wrap-up to the new trilogy and the Skywalker saga? Was it really an appropriate wrap-up? And in my opinion, I think J.J. Abrams did an excellent job grabbing all the elements, or some important elements from the original trilogy, as well as the new trilogy, specifically with the stuff from The Last Jedi. Again, a lot of people, including myself, really didn't like The Last Jedi as much as other Star Wars films. Don't get me wrong, there are some really cool parts in The Last Jedi for sure, but overall, The Last Jedi is definitely not my favorite Star Wars film. And I have to give J.J. Abrams major props here, because he took the really good elements from The Last Jedi and really managed to capitalize on these elements in The Rise of Skywalker and make them even more interesting. And they really did fit into The Rise of Skywalker. Now, was there anything that I did not like about the film? There is one thing in particular. Well, two things. First of all, there were not enough porgs in this movie. I mean, where were the porgs, JJ? And also the fact that JJ did not get the chance to do The Last Jedi. Now, I believe that was his choice, that he kind of stepped away for the 8th film, which is a bummer. I do wish that this would have flowed better from episode 7, 8, and 9. But overall, I think he did a great job fixing some of the shortcomings of The Last Jedi and wrapping up the new trilogy as well as the Skywalker saga. I mean, he was given something to work with, and he did a great job with it. Because again, in my opinion, The Last Jedi is not my favorite Star Wars film. And, I was even wondering how J.J. Abrams was going to do this and how he would pull it off. And when I saw how he did it, I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, wow, he really did take some risk here, and he really did bring to the table a lot of action, a lot of really cool story elements, a lot of cool lore, also a lot of mystery as well, because a lot of the stuff in The Rise of Skywalker does not have answers to the many questions we have. So hopefully that means more Star Wars in the future. That's what I'm really hoping that we see. There's also been many people complaining that the movie simply moved way too fast, that it was hard to keep track of. I personally did not feel this way at all. I didn't feel like I lost track of the story or the scenes because of the fast-paced nature of this film. I actually enjoyed that part of the film, because the 2 hours and 20 minutes or so of the film, it truly felt like an hour and a half. I could not believe how quickly this movie felt like it was over. I was like, wow, is it already over? And I knew that was a good sign immediately when the credits rolled at the end, because I was like, wow, that 2 hours and 20 minutes, it went by super quick. I think they did an excellent job with the film, and that's at least how I felt when I walked away from the movie. So let me know in the comments, how did you feel when you walked out of the theater for the first time? Did you feel completely energized like I did, or did you feel completely depressed? Let me know in the comments. Alright, so we've already talked about the story. I really did enjoy the story of The Rise of Skywalker. I felt like it was executed very well, pulled from the original trilogy, pulled from the new trilogy as well, and I think it did a great job wrapping up everything in this film. Now, I'm going to expand on the directing and editing a little bit. I've already established that it is a fast-paced movie, of course, but I also want to talk about the execution of the actual scenes, like with the lightsaber battles, the other scenes in the movie. I don't want to spoil it again. I'm not going to spoil it, but I personally felt like the scenes in this movie were executed beautifully. I really did enjoy every scene in this movie. Like, I was completely glued to the screen. The planets they visited, the actual choreography with the lightsaber battles, the other battles in the film. Again, I don't want to give it away, but there's so much stuff happening on screen that my mind was completely blown. I was like, how did they pull this off in this one film? And again, that goes back to J.J. Abrams really trying to tell as much of a story as possible in this one film. And personally, I think he did an excellent job grabbing all the elements and then wrapping it into an action-packed movie package here. And I really did enjoy it. It's a movie that I'm going to see many, many times, and something that I'm going to really enjoy watching again and again. And I cannot say the same for The Last Jedi. I feel like the Last Jedi really fizzles out at certain points and gets really boring for me personally. I feel like some parts in The Last Jedi were super boring. I'm just going to be honest. And this movie, Rise of Skywalker, I did not feel like was boring at all. So I'd have to say The Rise of Skywalker for me personally is definitely my favorite Star Wars film in the new trilogy above The Force Awakens. So for me personally, it goes The Rise of Skywalker, then The Force Awakens, and then The Last Jedi in terms of the new trilogy ranking. Now let's move on to the acting in this movie. Did the cast of The Rise of Skywalker deliver the goods? And I would have to say absolutely. Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, John Boyega, and Oscar Isaac did an awesome job. It was awesome to see these cast members back together again on an epic adventure. This is something that I really felt like The Last Jedi missed out on. They completely neglected the fact that we as an audience wanted to see this cast back together again. And I'm glad to see that J.J. Abrams corrected this by bringing them back together on an epic adventure of epic proportions. So it was really cool to see that. And the other cast members, of course, throughout the entire film did a great job supporting the main cast members. Now I will say this, in The Last Jedi, I always felt like all of these three primary cast members, Rey, Poe, and also Finn, really didn't feel like they were fitting into their roles very well in certain ways. That's how I felt personally. Now, in The Rise of Skywalker, I felt like they really took charge. They really took the lead, and they were the lead cast members of this film. So it was really cool to see that Rey, Poe, and Finn were indeed leading the charge in the story and really making the story go forth. And I really enjoyed seeing them all together on this epic adventure that traversed like many planets. That's another thing. The fact that they hopped from planet to planet, location to location, was really cool to see. Now, I also do have to mention the parts with the original cast, such as Princess Leia and, of course, Lando Calrissian. Now, in particular, the Princess Leia parts with Carrie Fisher, for me personally, I got very emotional on those parts. The last year and a half or so has been very tough for me. I lost my mom the last year and a half or so. So for me personally, seeing Carrie Fisher was extremely emotional because Carrie Fisher does remind me a lot of my mom. And I think that J.J. Abrams put Carrie Fisher in there really well. She didn't feel out of place. I was worried about this, but he did a really good job putting her in there. It was very respectfully done. And then also, I'm glad that he did not use CGI or anything like that. He used actual clips from The Force Awakens for Carrie Fisher, which was a really good decision. Now, seeing Lando in action, of course, really brought a smile to my face, and I really did enjoy seeing them in the movie. Oh, and the graphics of this movie were absolutely incredible. There were like many mind-blowing scenes that I just could not believe what I was seeing. Like, they also didn't just do the usual. They definitely did push the ideas, in this film. Like, they came to the table with some really new, fresh ideas in terms of the scenes that they produced with the graphics. So I was blown away, and you could not tell at all that any of this was CGI. It looked completely real. and my brother also walked away from the theater going, wow, the graphics were absolutely insane in this movie. So they execute on that as well perfectly, in my opinion. And, there were so many huge, robust scenes that filled the screen that, this is another thing that makes me want to go back to the theater time and time again. So, again, let me know, how many times are you going to see The Rise of Skywalker in the theaters? And the music in this movie was absolutely stunning. I loved the music in this movie. I really think John Williams hit it out of the park in this movie. The music just really flowed really well with every scene and really kept the momentum up and really complemented the fast-paced action of this film. And I just couldn't get enough of it. I was like, oh my God, the music is just amazing in this movie. But that's going to do it for the review. If you enjoyed the review, hit that like button. If you didn't, let me know what you thought of the movie, of course, in the comments. Everyone, be polite to each other. We don't want to start a whole war within the Star Wars community, of course. So make sure you're polite in the comments to each other. But I will see you all next time right here at the Star Wars HQ. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to turn on notifications by clicking on that bell icon. And I will see you next time, and may the Force be with you always.